Hey y'all, welcome back to Silver Ridge Outdoors. This is Kyle Stoffer checking in with you guys today. We're about to get some frog fishing in on this pond. But before that, I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk to you guys about some things that you need to know when you're frog fishing. These are some things that prior to now I didn't know about, and I really wish I had known before I started frog fishing. So one of the first things that you need to know is that when you get your frog, you want to bend the hooks out like this, like so. You can see that the frog I've got here, I've bent the lures out, and here's a similar frog, or actually the exact same model of frog, and you can see the hooks hug the side much more. And the problem with that is when a bass strikes, it's harder to get a proper hook set. So, in other words, when you're bringing the lure through, he may strike, but it's harder to get a hook set. The thing is, you will snag more, and that is why for years I resisted this. I heard people say for a long time that you need to bend those hooks out on your frog. And I said, well, that's a dumb idea because then you're going to snag a lot more stuff. And that is true to an extent. But here's the thing that you got to remember. Would you rather be 100% snag free and not catch any bass, or would you rather be about 80% snag free and then be catching bass? Well, I took the 100% snag free for a long time and I didn't catch many bass. So the first thing you want to do is just bend those hooks out. That will drastically increase your hook set ratio. So another thing that you want to do is, I'm going to start fishing here. You guys also want to remember that there's about 2 ways to frog fish. When you watch a tournament fisherman, often they go very, very fast. They're on a time limit, and so they're trying to cover as much water as possible. But when I frog fish, at least in the Midwest, I found that it's better to move the frog slower. You give the bass more time to think about biting the lure. And think about it this way, if I put a steak in front of somebody and they're not necessarily hungry, but that looks pretty good and they're thinking about it, and I take it right away, well then that solves their issue for them. They're not going to eat it. But if I leave it there and maybe waft some of the nice scent over their way, they might think about eating it more. And the same is true when you're fishing for bass. When you leave that lure in front of them and you twitch it, it gives them more time to be like, that's food, I need to eat that. And you might get 1 or 2 more reaction bites out of it. So another thing you guys want to remember as well is, if you look at this pond, you see a bunch of moss. And often by the shore, and even under some of these moss, beds or covers or whatever you want to call them, the bass are hiding. And there's often holes and little pockets that you want to especially focus on. The bass mainly operate by sight when they're fishing, but here's the thing to remember. When you move over a patch of moss, the bass can't necessarily see that, but they still trace it as the frog jumps over that or moves through there. And when they get into an opening, when they can see it, that's often when they'll strike. So you want to really focus on these strike zones, these action spots, these little holes, and it may even be the size of a $50. I've got a video. There was this little tiny hole that was in the strike zone, and I paused my lure in there, my frog, and twitched it for a few seconds and got a big strike. And that's what you want to do. Don't think that you've got to move the lure through as quickly as possible. Leave it in the strike zone as long as you can, because that's just going to maximize your chances for a bass to decide to eat that. He may be a little bit away, so it takes him a bit to swim there and get it. So wherever you determine that strike zone is, where you have the best probability to get a bass to bite, leave the lure there. Also, I've seen my brother, who's running the camera right now, he would sometimes bring the frog through in a little tiny opening and leave it there. And I used to think within the first second, if there's a bass there, he's going to bite. That's not always the case. You can leave the lure there and just twitch it around for 5 seconds, and then you might get a bite. So just leave the lure there in the strike zone. If you think you've got a high probability of getting a bass to bite, leave the lure there. You might just get some more fish. So we're gonna get to fishing now. I think my brother's chomping at the bit to do that, so we're gonna enjoy some fishing here. So hopefully these tips help you guys. If they do, leave us a comment. Thanks for watching this, guys. You take care, and we'll see you next time.